Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Maddox AI and Customer Success Summit. You are currently watching the Integrating AI into Customer Success Tech Stack. I'm excited to introduce you to all of our speakers and moderator. And as I introduce them, I'm going to have them answer our icebreaker question today, which is, what would you use AI to automate in your life outside of work? The first person is Bo Sun, Head of Customer Success North America at LinkedIn, and he is also our moderator today.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Hannah. So for me, I am an aspiring poker player, basically very highly interested, but not very good. And today, the game of poker has evolved quite a bit where there's an aspect of game theory associated where you can play perfect poker. And so if AI can magically turn into this coach that helps me understand what I'm doing right, what I'm doing wrong, I think I'd get a lot out of it. So that's what I would do. Focus on my hobbies and get better at poker, hopefully.
That's a great answer. All right, next up is Andrew Lefebvre, Head of Talent and Insights at LinkedIn.
Right. Thanks for the good question, Hannah. For me, I really enjoy traveling outside of work and actually just got back from a great 2-week vacation. In advance of those trips, I often spend a ton of time researching to try to get the itinerary just perfect and find some off the beaten path kind of restaurants or spots. And it takes a lot of time, and I would love AI to help simplify that. I know that there are actually a few AI powered travel planners already. Seems like early days, though. I think AI is kind of trained on what you feed it. So maybe if I was to share some of my own personal travel photos, they might come back with like the perfect itinerary for me. So I'm excited for the future there.
Yes, I would love to find new restaurants like that. Thank you. Next up, we have Calvin Multanen, Manager of Customer Success and Operations at Greenhouse.
Thanks, Hannah. Andrew, I think I might have some tips for you with ChatGPT, because that was actually the use case I was going to use for travel. And actually, I should shout out my manager, Rosa Gandler, for giving me this tip. But you can basically use like ChatGPT or any other generative. I've only used ChatGPT, but you can basically say, "Hey, I want a 10-day itinerary for Athens, Greece," and give me some restaurant recommendations, give me some things to do on each day, price ranges, all that stuff. And so I use that actually for a trip that I'm planning later this month. And I think it's still early days, but it's pretty cool. And then you can like obviously tweak it as you want. Like say, oh, I actually want to do this on this day instead. No. But I find it really, really helpful, especially if you're going to somewhere where like I have no idea what to do because there's so much to do. So, but it's great for travelers.
Thank you. That's great. Next up, we have Melissa Allen, Senior Manager of Customer Success Operations at Okta.
Thanks, Hannah. Yeah, so that's an amazing one, travel. I went super, super simple, and I was like, okay, what would I use it just like every single day? Text messages. I know it sounds really simple, but sometimes like you don't know exactly like the right way to word something, or if you don't want to go and meet somebody, but you want to say it in like a nice way, I would just be really great to be like, okay, ChatGPT or whatever, like say no, but in a really nice way and in a way in which they're not going to be upset with me. Like something super simple, but totally a daily use case for me is so I kind of went the more simple route on that one.
No, that's a great answer. All right, thank you. Up next, we have Sonam Debulkar, Director of Customer Success Operations at Gong.
Thanks, Hannah. Andrew and Calvin also took my answer. Mine was going to be travel, but I'll add an interesting spin on it. So I was just in Italy in the summer, which, as we all know, was like super crowded, and had never been to Italy. And so I signed up for all these tours and went at like the worst possible times where the line was the longest. And it was just so many people like crammed into all these museums. And so I would love for AI to suggest like tours and times for tours and days for tours where like no one has signed up. So I can just kind of leisurely walk through museums on my own and kind of take my time.
It's a great answer. It sounds like there's an idea for a company around this somehow with travel. All right. Thanks, everyone. Those are great answers. Before we start the session today, just a reminder to add any of your questions into the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen and your Zoom controls. And we will answer in the last 15 minutes any questions that come up. And I'm going to hand it off to Bo, our moderator.
Great. Thanks so much, Hannah. And thank you all for joining for such an interesting topic. I think we've got a good discussion planned ahead and looking forward to your Q&A. So let's start with this question. Would love to hear from the group. First, what's your role at your company, including what you're responsible for, and maybe share some of the top priorities for your department. Maybe we can start with Andrew.
All right. So I'm at LinkedIn and I lead the talent insights team. And so we're a team of data-driven storytellers for the talent business. And so our customers are primarily corporate recruiting teams and corporate learning and development teams. And we say that we're data storytellers because the team is technical and that they're querying LinkedIn's vast proprietary data set with SQL or Python, but then we package up our insights for a customer audience, an executive audience. And so the mandate for the team is really twofold. One is like ROI conversations and making sure that customers understand the value that they're getting from LinkedIn. And then secondly, it's to identify best practices using that large proprietary data set about how customers could hire better or upskill their employees in a better way. In terms of priorities for this year, we're going to be actually focusing on trying to map our customer objectives to our insights. And so what we've discovered is that our customers come to us not just to hire or upskill, but to do a variety of things within that realm, whether it's diversifying their workforce, building competitive skills like AI skills, promoting intermobility, et cetera, and that the team has developed a really large library of assets over the years. And so what we want to do is kind of map the objectives to the insights so we can more rapidly serve our customers, identify which insights are working better than others, et cetera. So that's me and our year ahead.
Great. I'll go next. Hi, everyone. I'm Sonam. I am currently the director of CS Ops at Gong, and in my role, I'm really the ops business partner for our chief customer officer, as well as the teams that he manages. And so really kind of focused on strategic initiatives and those key priorities across the whole kind of post-sales function and then cross-functionally as well. In terms of, what we're focused on, I would say there's a couple different things. So one is really driving meaningful customer adoption of what we call our advanced capabilities. So these are really our core kind of stickiest features, our most strategic features that we believe will generate the best outcomes for customers using our product. And so our whole kind of post-sales motion is really focused on really up-leveling these motions and delivering against those advanced capabilities. So customers are kind of adopting those in a healthy way. The next thing we're focused on is really kind of up-leveling our customer journey to support those advanced capabilities. So looking at what are the stages that we need in the customer journey, what is like the exit criteria for each of those stages, what kind of account teams are involved in the different roles that are involved in each of those stages, and then meaningfully kind of creating those motions to really drive those milestones that we want customers to hit to then ultimately renew and expand with us. So really kind of taking a holistic look at revamping that customer journey. And then also this year, we've launched some really big products and are really becoming like a multi-product company. And so looking at our post-sales motion and defining, as we roll out a new product, how do we embed that in our motion? What are the playbooks that our account teams can use? And then how do we really measure, the milestones and the metrics to make sure that customers are adopting that specific product in a healthy way? And then really becoming a true kind of multi-product company and managing that playbook for future years where we're launching other products as well.
Wow. I love that stuff about the customer journey. I feel like that is just so important. So that's awesome, Sonam. All right, so I'll go next. I'm Melissa Allen. I'm a senior manager of customer success operations at Okta. My team and I support our customer success team, our digital growth team. We kind of have a large scope. We also support our technical account managers that we call TAMs and our tech strategists. And throughout how we support them is we help with comp plans, headcount modeling, forecast planning, and we also own and admin our Gainsight instance, in which we try to utilize it and create call to actions in those playbooks and try to define our own customer journey as well. Some of the top priorities of my department this upcoming year is scale. We have a huge focus on the digital customer success growth team, along with automating motions for CS and our TAM teams. How can we be more efficient and give them time back to really work on those relationships? And another priority is providing them with clean and helpful insights so they can focus on those relationships with the customers, with the knowledge that they're supported with the right data and the tools, and have things like a customer journey that they can view upon and then go in and talk to the customer and have that support to do so. So we have quite a few things on our docket for this year as well.
Cool, and I'll wrap things up. Melissa, we should definitely chat about some of the scaled stuff. Calvin Multanen, manager of CS Ops at Greenhouse. Very, I think, pretty similar role to kind of like what Melissa laid out, but at Greenhouse, I support our customer success team, so our managers, our directors, our VP, basically helping them with all the kind of day-to-day operations, whether that be stuff like capacity, resourcing, tools, day-to-day admins, and then more strategic initiatives as well. Some of the big, I think, focuses for next year, and also I guess the rest of this year is, obviously customer retention, right? Like it's a tough market, especially in tech and especially in hiring. So how can we make sure that, our CSMs have what they need to make sure that their customers are successful and, in a challenging environment? And also like how can we work with our customers to make sure that they can kind of weather the storm and that, that we're still a strategic partner with everything that's going on. And I think also another big initiative kind of tied to that is how can we give our CSMs better signals, better kind of insights into when they should be engaging with customers. So we about a year ago, we kind of revamped our customer journey and we've really got that kind of nailed down. But, how can we continue to iterate on it, improve upon it, and so that our CSMs are really engaging with our customers at the right moment, providing the right recommendations, best practices, and ultimately make our customers successful.
So I think a common theme across the board is that there's quite a bit of things that we can do to help our companies be more effective and efficient with AI. We talked about improving our customer journey. We talked about understanding customer objectives. We talked about scale. Is there a particular part of the CS workflow that you see AI having the most impact? And maybe even peeling it back a little bit more, what are you most excited about and what are you most skeptical about? So Andrew, maybe we can go back to you to kick us off.
I think the one use case that I would highlight in terms of a particular part of the CS workflow that I'd want to spotlight is something that we partnered on with our data science team, and that was trying to assess our customers' health at like huge scale and with a lot of accuracy. And so we've been using AI scores and predictions to identify which customers are going to churn or which customers are ripe for an upsell or a cross-sell. And so this account prioritization work was both like a huge time savings for our CS ops teams or even our sales reps and CS reps versus kind of like the traditional way of doing a lot of this manually and spreadsheets and things like that. And then the accuracy was just so much higher because you could train the model on years and years of product usage data and CRM data. And so it's been a big win for the team because it helps our reps use their time more wisely. They get in front of the right customer at the right time, and then we get really good commercial outcomes as a result of it. So that's good. So that's like what's exciting for me is like the ability to drive really efficient use of time and talk to customers about the right things that they're interested in. In terms of skeptical, I don't know, there's some doom and gloom articles out there about how AI is just going to be kind of a net negative around for jobs and talent. And I think that might be overblown as someone that's been through a number of tech cycles. I think AI is going to certainly be able to delegate and take over some elements of our roles, but I think it'll also play a role in supplementing the type of work we do. And then there's always, I think, some element of our jobs that will not be going away to AI.
Yeah, well, plus one, the health score and prioritization answer that is a huge kind of area of potential for AI and CS. I think the other area, especially in CS ops, we get really excited about data and how to use data to make CSMs' lives more efficient and help them be more effective at driving customer outcomes. And digital customer success is a very big topic these days. And I think in using data to inform what a customer's digital journey can look like and how that digital journey becomes very personalized and very targeted and very prescriptive and actually complements the human-led journey that the CSM is taking the customer on. How can we create the super effective digital customer journey that drives to customer outcomes even faster. That's something that I think is really exciting and I see huge potential for, especially now. I think the thing that I'm most skeptical of is like there's so much importance, and I don't think this will ever go away, like importance on human connection. And especially in the customer success role, you're responsible for really building that trusted advisor relationship with your customer, getting to like that place of vulnerability where they tell you their business challenges, their pain points, they trust you to solve them. And I don't think like AI could ever replace that. I think AI could be the foundation on which a CSM could get certain pieces of information that would inform, how they become a strategic advisor to their customers. But I hope that AI would never replace that human element that I think we still need in customer success.
And I'm definitely going to plus one what you said about digital customer success and about Andrew and the health score, because those are such big things, and they can make such a movement with those two use cases. I think sometimes when I think about stuff, I almost think of like there's these huge big wins, but then what about like a daily win? And I know a lot of our CSMs, they get questions from their customers saying, hey, how's another customer similar to me, similar to my use case, with how much I spend with Okta, how are they doing? What's their journey look like? And just trying to dig and find comparisons and almost like a benchmarking is super tough. And a CSM can spend hours, days, weeks even to make sure that if they're going to compare and talk to that customer, say, actually, you're on track, man, you're doing great, or to actually have the ability to tell them how they're doing, it's really tough. So I'm almost thinking just even on a daily use case of being able to utilize AI to say, find me a similar customer with a similar use case and show me what that looks like and how my customer is doing against at least 10 different ones. Can you imagine that would be like in a second, and versus days or weeks that it would take a CSM? So then you've got a CSM trimming down weeks of their time to have that conversation, that really valuable conversation, so much more quickly. So I'm thinking like these huge wins, and then you just got these almost like daily wins that you could use. As far as kind of what I'm a little skeptical about, I'm almost afraid that we might get too dependent, right? Not so much as like, it might take certain pieces of the jobs or something like that, but what if we get too dependent on it and potentially we lose that relationship feel? We're utilizing AI to answer certain emails or to have these analysis drawn up, but we're not actually connecting with that analysis anymore because we don't have to, because it was kind of built for us. So I do worry that we might get too dependent and lose that connection that we have with the customers versus it kind of taking over. So I think if we're just aware and we maintain and have it as a supplement and help utilize our jobs, but not take over that relationship piece of the CS team and stuff like that, I think that would hopefully help keep that from happening.
Yeah, big plus one to everything that everyone already said about kind of the big areas. I think continuing the theme of kind of the smaller wins, obviously there's some big wins around stuff with like, digital success and, using, better, smarter models. I also think like there's a huge opportunity for something like the day-to-day admin, right? Like, I think stuff like we use Gainsight, we also use Gong. I think there's a ton of really awesome like time savings that we've already saved from like just a Gainsight to Gong integration, but also stuff like that'll automatically like track stuff around like sentiment or types of, maybe instead of having a CSM like have to like log a bunch of fields or, okay, they talked about this, they talked about that, talked about this, having something that can actually just grab all that, instantly put it in the right report, put it in the right structure, I think would be a huge win, or it is already kind of a huge win for our team, because that's time that they don't have to spend just like fuddling around with our systems that we set up so we can report on it. It's more time they can spend on like actually talking to customers, understanding their needs, understanding their challenges, and really providing more strategic value. So I think that's a huge thing. I think also on the ops world, like there's a ton of just like admin stuff that we all have to deal with. And I would love to be able to kind of automate some of that as well, right? Like if I could just be like, I want a report that has XYZ in it, and like it's just kind of puts it all together instead of having to like drag and drop columns. That would be huge. I think the thing that I'm skeptical about is just like accuracy, right? Like we see stories all the time about like something that, somebody asked ChatGPT and like it gave a crazy answer. I think, especially when it comes to dealing with like internal company data or especially customer data, how do we make sure that whatever tools we're using are giving the right outputs, especially if it's data that we're then going to go present to a customer, right? Because the last thing I want to do is put my CSMs in a situation where they present something and then the customer's like, oh, that looks wrong, because that instantly creates a new obstacle that they have to deal with, more work for them, and then also more work for us, and also more work for like our data team as well, like try to understand. Sometimes it comes down to end user error, right? Maybe they put something in wrong, or maybe there's something wrong with their data pipeline. But I think there is just kind of that barrier, right? And also kind of that black box, and we don't really know. We know kind of conceptually how it's working, but we don't really know. Right? So I think that is still just kind of the thing I'm always skeptical of. I think would require a lot of testing on our end to make sure that we're really confident in it. But I think there's so much potential for tools like AI.
Yeah, +1 there. So unlimited potential, but let's get there with a hint of pragmatic skepticism. So overall, we talked about use cases across the board, but I think what people are looking for in this particular session is maybe some really specific examples of how our companies have started to think about and maybe apply some of the powers of AI. So Calvin, I'm going to go back to you, and maybe you can share specifically at Greenhouse what some of the things y'all are focused on.
Yeah, I'll come out and say it. I think we're definitely taking a slower, more tempered approach with AI at Greenhouse. I think part of that is just because of the types of data that we deal with, like around like candidate information and stuff. There's a lot of PII in there, so we're not itching to like plug that into some new tool and like see what happens. I think one of the things that I kind of resonated with me that Andrew talked about was, using AI and kind of machine learning and various algorithms to like build a better cohort model. That's something that we recently did to help our customer teams understand which customers should we be focused on, like which ones are like low touch. They're really, they're not writing into support. They're not really engaging with like any of our materials, like kind of low risk, low ARR, versus what are the ones we should definitely save, right? Strategic accounts like that's, or maybe it's something that they're actually more middle of the road. They don't need a lot of attention. They're more like a renew. I think that's something that we're now starting to play with, especially in our scaled team, where they have like hundreds of customers in their books. But I think stuff like that is definitely something that we're really invested in and exploring to kind of roll out to our other segments later on this quarter. And I think also, so I would say that's probably the biggest, most recent practical use of it. I would say we do have like a company like policy on generative AI. And so we definitely encourage CSMs to use stuff to like write email templates or exec summaries or stuff like that. It's really going to be anything that uses like internal company data or customer data that we're going to restrict to existing vendor relationships. And I think one of the things we're really excited to see is a lot of our vendors are rolling out their own AI features, which makes it easier because we don't have to go out and do the whole evaluation process. And it's already a trusted vendor. We know that they can work with our data. And it makes it much easier to implement because it's already integrated into our tech stack. So we're definitely excited to kind of be able to start playing around with those. I know there's a couple in the works that I'm personally really excited to test out on Matic. So we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, definitely more to come. So, but exciting things.
Great, Andrew. I know that there's a few things that is on our radar. Would you care to share some specifics?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, LinkedIn's been using, I did a little research before this talk, been using AI since 2007. So if you've been on the platform and ever seen a job you might be interested in or a recommendation for a person you might know to connect with, those are all outputs from AI models. This year, what's changing at LinkedIn is we'll be a little bit more overt about using AI with our members and customers to let them become more productive in using the products themselves. So for a corporate recruiter customer, they're going to be able to use a generative AI writing assistant to be able to reach out to more job candidates more quickly, but also with more effectiveness because we know how to reach certain candidates with certain messages. So things like that will allow our members and customers to just use the product a little bit more smartly by taking all the best practices that LinkedIn's developed through machine learning, through AI, and providing those features and those nudges to our customers and members.
Thanks, Andrew. Shifting gears a little bit here, I I want to make sure we do spend some time to cover how we are incorporating AI into the rest of our tech stack. And so maybe Melissa, we can start with you. Would love to hear how you're thinking about this at Okta, and maybe learn from you. You know, overall, how does this fit in, and maybe some of the things you're expecting this to displace or replace as part of your current operating procedures.
Sure. So we're trying to be really diligent in our quest to use AI, because Okta is all about identity and security. So we're just super like taking very small baby steps and really trying to do our due diligence to make sure we're vetting everything that we're doing. So there might not just be one AI tool. Kind of how we're seeing it is that potentially we might use multiple AI tools, but in specific kind of areas. So not like linking them or anything like that, but basically depending on, because there's so many AI tools out there, depending on our specific use case or need, maybe we have a specific one that we utilize, say for support cases. Can you imagine how much time that would save if we could say, has anybody ever had an issue kind of like this? Because maybe it's not tagged a certain way, and then it can just go and find all the ways you solved it in the past. So having specific use cases like that, maybe we have an AI tool just around our support cases in Service Cloud, right? And it's very unique to that, and it doesn't reach other areas of the business. So we're really trying to be careful about where it should go, which ones fit the need of each kind of use case the best. And like I said, I don't think there's going to be one AI tool for us that fits everything. So we're being really careful to vet those tools. And I don't necessarily think it's going to replace, but I think what it's going to do is, say for the support case instance, it's going to just trim down massively that time of a support analyst trying to figure out if we've solved this issue before, because maybe if it's a very interesting use case, maybe it was dealt with 2 years ago, how are you going to find that quickly? So being able to look at those different use cases, find the tool that's right for that need, and plug it in that way. So I definitely think we're a little far off from actually plugging AI right into Okta, but we're taking that time, that due diligence to see where it makes sense so we can really do that analysis.
Yeah, I love that thoughtful, like use case based approach, Melissa. At Gong, so Gong's been in the AI space for a number of years, since 2016. And so at Gong, we like to say, we drink our own champagne. And we, in the past, have released a bunch of AI features and are now this year, renewing our focus on that and releasing a bunch of upcoming features focused on AI, really with the goal of applying AI to a lot of just the go-to-market team's motions. So examples are, using smart trackers to track initiatives and concepts across more than just keywords, but across, a number of kind of concepts, and really looking at things like, is the customer asking for a discount? Okay, let's track that as a broader theme versus just those keywords. Looking at, recommended contacts that analyze win-loss data and actually suggest like, hey, you should contact this person because, based on the past 1,000 deals, this seems like the right job title to contact. And so surfacing that ahead of time in a deal. With generative AI specifically, creating email templates, which I think is applicable for like sales and CS, right? Like we're always emailing our customers, sending follow-ups after meetings, documenting action items, next steps. And with Gong, a lot of that functionality is now in place. And so it's really, I think, improving the workflow and making teams more efficient and kind of reducing the manual work there. One thing that I would love to see is, CSMs are often tasked with proactive steps like, making sure a customer is hitting those milestones on the customer journey. But what about kind of the reactive things, right? So if there's a customer risk, if there's something that's unanticipated, can AI really surface a playbook for the CSM to apply? That would really kind of be the most effective playbook for that scenario based on, past experience, past data that's been put into the model. So just stuff like that, as we start to kind of like crack the surface of like what Gong can do. I think the future is like making AE workflows and CS workflows just a lot more prescriptive. And at Gong, we like to drink our own champagne, as I said. So that's really our focus here, is like kind of pushing our own product to the limits in terms of AI versus looking at other tools to add to our tech stack at this point.
I love that approach, Sonam. Overall, just I wanted to thank all of the all of the panelists here for sharing. I think we're at the precipice of a major, just innovative period in our space, and hearing about the specific initiatives, the approaches, the philosophies that we're all taking, as well as the potential risks, concerns, was hopefully helpful. I certainly learned a ton from each of y'all today. With that, for the last 15 minutes, I'm going to pass it back to Hannah for Q&A. And thanks again, everyone, for the great questions.
Thank you, Bo. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to go through any questions that were submitted in the Q&A section. If you would still like to submit some, please do so, and we'll go through them. The first question is for Andrew. This person would love to hear more about how your team built the account prioritization model and what tools were used and what was the project plan like.
Got it. Without getting into too many specifics, I would actually direct people to go to, if you go to linkedin.com and then search for Crystal Candle, that was actually the name of the project, not a person's name, but Crystal Candle. And you can kind of learn quite a bit of detail on the different machine learning models that were used to create that. And then we published an abstract with Cornell so that everyone can kind of learn from our success. The other kind of fascinating fact, if you go there, was that initially there was some skepticism, like despite us doing an A/B test and saying, if you use these scores, you'll get, an 8% lift in revenue. The field was a little bit skeptical and said, hey, I think I know my customers better than some black box. And so what this resulted in was a project to actually explain what was going on inside the black box and surfacing the drivers for why those scores were showing up the way they did. And that actually led to quite a bit of improvement in adoption by the field. So really fascinating project. So check it out if you want to learn more on linkedin.com.
Thanks, Andrew. All right. The next question is from Calvin, with Greenhouse. What tools is Greenhouse using to build the cohort models or accounts that you mentioned earlier?
I think Andrew's probably got a better real world example of that because we don't have a website for it. But it was our data analytics team basically helped put together it using machine learning and looking at a ton of different variables and across that. So can't speak to the specifics of it, but we're now piping it into all of our key tools like Gainsight, Salesforce, Zendesk, and that's really kind of driving really kind of behaviors and actions across all of our post-sales teams. So whether that be CSMs, understanding which customers they should be reaching out to, or support reps understanding, okay, this is a high priority customer versus a low priority. It's actually going to change kind of how our SLIs work there. And then for AMs as well, it'll kind of change how we approach renewal conversation and start to think potentially about automating some of those as well. But yeah, I wish I could speak to more of the particulars there, but I'm definitely going to go check out Crystal Candle.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. Then next we have a few questions. I'll just go through each one separately. So with so much Gen AI being built into products and used for time savings and efficiency, how might this change the competencies you look for when evaluating CSM talent? And anyone can jump in.
So I think that's really interesting. I think it always kind of goes back to my fear, right? Of relying too much on it. I know a lot of our interview processes is, hey, here's a use case with a customer, go build out a deck and I want you to present it to me. And so to be able to still do that and make them feel like you're connected, make them feel like you care, and that even if the data was given to you, you still actually absorb that and you have that relationship you're trying to build. I still think that is so huge. So that's still going to be a necessity when you in the interview process, to make sure even if they are given the data to make their lives more efficient by using something like AI or in an interview process, just given it, can you still show that you've absorbed it, that you've read it, that you want that connection with that customer to help them be successful, and also that you can actually understand what's been given to you instead of just reading it off, right? So I think there's still going to be those tells. There's still going to be that way to do that. And almost nowadays, it's actually probably going to be nice that they can say, even if the data is given to you, show me that it still matters. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I'll add on to that. I think so much of a CSM is a lot of the soft skills around beyond just the business acumen. It's the relationship building. It's, do you have active listening skills? Can you understand a customer's pain points and then, come up with an action plan that actually addresses those? And can you build that trusted advisor relationship? And I don't think AI is really going to replace that or should replace that. And I think part of the interview process is going to test for that and will account for cases where that's not in place. But I do think AI is kind of the next wave of the future. And I think a big part of the CSM role is also just embracing change and innovation. And so those CSMs that are really open to embracing AI and using it to be more resourceful and more effective in their jobs, I think that's also a great skill to have and to look for in the interview process.
Great, thank you both. The next question, will AI be used for candidate evaluation, concerns, or benefits?
Ooh, I wonder if you end up using it show me if there's red flags. If we've hired anybody with very similar answers, with very similar resumes that have attrited, right? Or that have been put on a PIP. I think you can utilize it like that, but you're still gonna have to make those conversations. You're still gonna have that gut. You're still gonna go through that process. But I think utilizing it for that, show me past experience with people that have potentially similar things that have been put on a PIP and all that. It'll at least provide extra context that you could actually address in the interview as well. So I think that could be a really good use of AI in that kind of interview process.
Speaking from Greenhouse perspective, I think obviously we advocate kind of a structured approach to hiring. I think there is definitely a place for AI and stuff like app review and kind of helping recruiters and hiring managers quickly find the right types of candidates and help assist with that. I think it gets the waters get a little gray when you're reject or I don't want to be in a world where AI is choosing who to hire. I think it can help and enhance kind of the decision-making process and should to Melissa's point, help kind of highlight those red flags or kind of make that more apparent. But I don't know. I don't think anybody wants to get rejected by a robot. But I also know from experience, if anybody is a Greenhouse customer, if you filled out a scorecard, right? It'd be really great if you could just use AI to kind of generate some of that for you and it can edit it. But I don't know if anybody from my product team's listening, but I know that's a personal pain point for me.
Thank you. All right, I believe this question is for you, Calvin, because you brought this up. You mentioned customer PII. What are your policies around that and touching generative AI models?
Yeah, so specifically, we're pretty restrictive about PII, especially customers, but also especially candidates. Everything in our data warehouse is pretty much restricted. There's only a few things that will touch it and can actually access to it. Everything else is using kind of anonymized identifiers. We're very, very careful about how we handle that type of information and which systems go through it. And actually, anytime we add a new system that uses PII, we have a whole because I think GDPR or something, whole process for adding sub-processors. So it's very locked down. So to that regard with AI tools, any AI tool that we would use that would go through AI or use PII would go through the same kind of evaluation process. I think for stuff that we've already evaluated and gone through that whole sub-processor process and kind of verification, I would hope that's a little easier for us to get that implemented and so we can start beta testing stuff. But at the same point, the last thing I want to do is give have something leak that has a ton of really sensitive information there. So I think we're okay to kind of hold off and not necessarily jump the gun on putting all that into a new tool. But I think there's still a lot of applications for stuff that isn't PII, right? Aggregated data and being able to do trend analysis and all sorts of stuff like that. I think you don't necessarily need that PII in there. So I think there's ways around it.
Great, thank you. I think this will probably be our last question for the session. But if there are any more questions, we can get to those after the session and get some answers for you. Which AI projects should a startup in high growth focus on first, i.e. some options, churn risk, product usage, success planning, etc.?
Oh, that's a hard question because those are all really good examples. I would say, I mean, just given the macroeconomic climate that we're in, I think churn risk will be the kind of highest value project to focus on. Because with churn, oftentimes you need to get many quarters ahead of it. And so the sooner that you can work on something that helps you identify those indicators of churn and downgrade risk of your accounts, you can start working on those renewals quarters in advance and start to see the impact of that. So that one gets my vote.
Yeah, I would definitely second that, but also kind of going one step further, figuring out what potentially is causing the churn, and then like literally waterfalling it to saying, okay, what do we need to do? Oh, maybe we do some success plan analysis and see like which ones don't have success plans, which ones do. I mean, it could be a total waterfall, but yeah, I think churn is definitely going to be your top one, because then it could lead to so many other things that then you can then do analysis on and then figure out, where can I make the difference? Where can we make the change?
I'll agree. Yeah. And I think that waterfall kind of analysis, or getting under the covers, is what this explainable AI that I just provided the link to is so helpful for. Because sometimes you'll think that you're in a great relationship with that customer, but when you look under the covers, you're like, oh, wow, that product utilization is terrible over here. That's not going to go so well come renewal time. So I definitely agree with that. And I also just think from like if you're a hyper growth startup, the market opportunity there is pretty large if you could really kind of fix the churn problem writ large across the economy.
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, churn would definitely be my priority as well.
Great. Thank you all so much for joining. Thanks everyone for joining on the attendee side. We're at the end of our session. Like I said, any questions we did not get to, we'll get to those post summit and get those out to you. Along with the recording, all the sessions today will be recorded and will be available after the event. All attendees will be notified when that content's live through your email. And thank you again to our speakers, our panelists. We really appreciate it. And thank you everyone today for attending. Have a great day.